Hello everybody and welcome to Omnipoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. I'm Jack and today I'm back with another deck analysis. This time we're going to be looking at Sceptile and Mega Sceptile from the new Ancient Origins set. So let's hop straight into it. I'm going to start off with the Pokemon. We have 4 Sceptile EX. Sceptile is obviously such a good Pokemon in the new set. His first attack, for 1 grass, letting you do 10 damage, and on a coin flip, sleep and poison the opponent, which can be really disruptive. And then on the second attack, a grass and a colourless for 60 damage, and if your opponent's active is affected by a special condition, doing an extra 70, so 130 damage. Obviously, that's really efficient for the energy cost. 130 is really good. And there's ways we can manipulate the deck so we can easily get it to 130 damage every turn. So yeah, Sceptile is our main attacker. We also do have 2 of the Mega Sceptile though. We can use Mega Sceptile. We're going to probably be looking to use Mega Sceptile earlier on in the game, just for his Jagged Saber attack to sort of energy excel ourselves. Obviously Jagged Saber doing 100 damage for a grass and a colourless, and letting you attach up to 2 grass energy from the hand to one of your benched Pokemon, and then healing all of the damage off of them, which is really nice as well. The heal is often kind of irrelevant, but even so, it's nice to have that effect because you can sort of use some switching tactics to be able to heal up your guys as well, which is really cool. Obviously, Jagged Saber is really good for setting up some awkward EXs that have sort of high energy costs, or just EXs that benefit off of having a lot of energy on them. So it's a really good attack. So yeah, we're running a 4-2 line of the Mega Sceptile. And then this is how we're manipulating the sort of Unseen Claw attack. We run a 2-2 Ariados line. Ariados' ability letting you poison both active Pokemon unless they're grass types. Obviously the grass types don't get affected by the poison, as stated in the ability. As long as we have an Ariados on the bench, we can just have the Sceptile in the active, Ariados on the bench, use his Poisonous Nest ability, and then hit with the Sceptile, meaning that we're guaranteeing 140 damage, considering they then take 10 damage from the poison, which is a nice little bonus too. This is basically how the whole deck works. You're just going to be trying to build up a couple of Sceptiles and always have an Ariados on the bench to be able to Poisonous Nest, leading into the later game where we're going to be using 2 of our Lugia EX, the new Lugia EX, which is very reminiscent of the Mewtwo from Next Destinies. Lugia EX is, for a DCE, does 20 times the number of energy attached to both your active and your opponent's active. So really, really good synergy with Mega Sceptile because you're attaching 2 for free with his attack and already weakening the opponent. So you're probably not going to have many more energy on Lugia to be able to then finish them off, or even build up enough energy to be able to one-shot something that your opponent may be powering up on the bench. Definitely a really, really cool card. And then his second attack, Deep Hurricane for 4 colourless, which is actually really accessible considering we have energy acceleration in Mega Sceptile and we run a couple of DCEs in here as well. Deep Hurricane is actually quite accessible, doing 80 damage, and then if there's a stadium in play, you discard the stadium and do an extra 70, so 150 for 4, which is okay, but it's a really good finisher, especially on anything that's been hit by Jagged Saber already. I really like Mewtwo. It also gives another weakness to the deck. It's not all fire weak, it then gives a lightning weakness as well. A lot of people are trying to pair Trevenant EX with Mega Sceptile, and whilst I kind of see the synergy, that makes your whole deck weak to fire, whereas at least having a Lugia, you don't have that weakness to fire, and with Flareon coming into the format in a pretty big way, the fire types are definitely getting stronger, at least the stage 1s are, anyway. Then we have a single Hooper EX. I'm putting Hooper EX in pretty much all of my Mega decks, simply because it just gives you so much access to so many of your cards. And there are ways to be able to have Mega Sceptile feel a lot like a Mega Rayquaza deck setting up in a turn, meaning that Hooper's a really important card if you're going for that turn 1 Jagged Saber, which actually happens relatively often, because there are quite a few cards in here to draw and quite a few ways you can look for these different cards that will lead you into a turn 1 Mega Sceptile. I'll explain how you do that a little bit later on. But yeah, Hooper is so good, just letting you search for 3 EX Pokemon when you drop him onto the bench. It's usually going to be something like a Lugia, a Sceptile and a Shaymin, or a Sceptile and Mega Sceptile and a Shaymin, something like that, something in those sort of combination. Just because you can often use a lot of those cards really proactively straight away, leading you into bigger hand sizes with Shaymin, which is really, really important. We then have 3 Shaymin EX, as I've just mentioned. The 3 Shaymin EX, again, just really help with drawing through the deck, keeping it consistent, things like that. And it's really good for, again, getting with Hooper, to be able to drop them down really quickly, getting a few cards out of your hand straight away, maybe with an Ultra Ball to search for the Hooper, then being able to get even more cards out of your deck that you perhaps didn't want with the Shaymin, in getting 3 or 4, or 2 or 3 Pokemon, and then being able to drop the Shaymin and just drawing huge amounts of cards. I think Shaymin just gets so much better with Hooper EX, and I definitely think 3 is needed in the deck just to be able to consistently get a turn 1 Mega Sceptile off as often as possible, really. So that's it for the Pokemon. We're going to move into the Energy and Trainers now. We're going to start off with the Energy. We have 2 DCE, pretty much solely for the Lugias, being able to set them up quickly. And then 9 Grass Energy for 5. We're having 9 Grass Energy. It may seem like a lot, but you want to be able to access them to get the most value out of Jagged Saber every turn, or every turn that you use it at least. And having 9 just means that you don't mind getting rid of them to be able to help you Mega Turbo, to get your turn 1 Sceptile going. You don't mind having a couple in hand because you can Jagged Saber with them. You just always have access to energy with this deck, which I really like about Mega Sceptile. And I think it is one thing that it really does better than some other decks. Some decks are running really low energy counts at the moment, and I think Mega Sceptile does really well at manipulating the amount of energy it's got. Considering it's got a high amount, it doesn't mind getting rid of them, but it's always got uses for them as well, because you can attach them with Mega Sceptile's attack as well, which is really, really useful. So let's move these over here and get on into the trainers. We have 4 Sycamore, again with pretty much all of my decks. I don't believe there is a deck out there at the moment that doesn't run 4 Sycamore. I don't really feel I'd need to justify this too much, just because Sycamore is the best draw support we've got in the game really at the moment, and will continue to be for a little while at least, until we get something that is even better, but I don't think we will for a long time. We have 2 Birch's Observations. Initially it was at 1. I've decided to up it to 2, just because they're the only types of draw support we have, or draw supporter cards at least that we have. I feel Birch fits the deck the best. I think Ace Trainer doesn't really fit, because you're going to be going aggressive with the deck relatively early, meaning that you're not going to get the most benefit off of, well, you're not going to get any benefit off of Ace Trainer. And then I kind of feel I understand why Birch is technically a bit better than Shauna, so I'm happy to run 2 Birch, but any combination of the 2 or the 3 draw supporters that we have in the format at the moment, I could see any sort of justification for however you'd want to split up the draw supporters in the deck, considering they're all relatively okay options, I suppose. We then have 2 Lysander. Again, 2 Lysander, another staple in pretty much all decks, just to be able to manipulate where you take your prizes, choose where you really want to be dealing your damage, or maybe stall out your opponent if they've benched something that they don't really want to have active. You have to force them into a switch or something like that. Finally, we have 1 Hexmaniac. Again, relatively staple in all decks at the moment. Hexmaniac is just really good for getting through some annoying abilities like Item Lock, things like that. Just having 1 means you've always got access to it if you really need it, if there's a particular Pokemon's ability that you need to get around. So it's definitely a really influential card. And with the 4 VS Seeker, we don't mind dumping it early on, because we can easily get it back if we really need to. So yeah, again, 4 VS Seeker, I don't really feel I need to justify this either, just because VS Seeker is so strong. We run a really low supporter count, only 9 supporters, and only 6 of them being draw based. So it's useful for being able to get them back with VS Seeker, and I think that's why we definitely need 4 in here, rather than possibly a 3 count. We then have 4 Ultra Ball. Ultra Ball basically becomes a search your deck for 3 EXs with Hooper, so Ultra Ball just gets even stronger, and again it boosts Shaman's power because you're discarding cards to look for this Hooper. You're then getting a few more cards out of your deck that you don't want to be drawing into with Shaman, so you just get so much more values out of the Shamans now Hooper is a thing. It also searches for everything in the deck. There's no real reason to run anything else in the deck. I suppose you could justify maybe 1 or 2 level balls for the Ariados, but that's all they get, so I don't really feel they're justified. And I think Ultra Ball does sort of the job just fine. Moving into the turn 1 Sceptile combo, we have 3 Mega Turbo and 3 Spirit Link, or Sceptile Spirit Link, and then 3 Forest of Giant Plants. These 3 cards are going to be how you're getting your turn 1 Sceptiles out. Being able to Spirit Link and Forest of Giant Plants basically gives the Sceptile Delta Evolution, which is the same as the Mega Rayquaza, meaning that you can evolve it in 1 turn. You don't lose your turn because of the Spirit Link, and then you have access to Mega Turbo as well, so if you manage to discard an energy, you can Mega Turbo it back onto your Shaman, not your Shaman, your Sceptile, sorry, and be able to Jagged Saber from turn 1, which is so strong. I definitely think it happens a lot more than you'd perhaps think, because you don't need all of these pieces at once, as long as you find a Spirit Link at some point, a Forest at some point, and then later on a Mega Turbo. There's definitely a lot of ways to do that. Obviously we've got all of the draw power through the Shamans and the Sycamores, and there's a couple of other things in here that also reduce or make the deck more consistent, reduce the amount of dead cards in the deck, meaning that you can really often get this turn 1 Sceptile out. That's the aim at least. Obviously, again, Forest of Giant Plants is really good for setting up the Ariados in a turn as well, and Spirit Link means you're not bothered by things like Headringer. Just general things that are also helpful, along with being able to set up a Sceptile in 1 turn. 2 of the cards that are really helpful are Trainer's Mail. Trainer's Mail basically means you're more likely to draw into one of your pieces. From just looking at the cards right now, there are really not many trainers in the deck that you wouldn't want to have, because all of them are at least somewhat helpful into finding all of the pieces you need to set up quick Sceptiles. Obviously there are things like Hexmaniac and Lysander that you don't really want turn 1, but there are so many other really good cards that you can definitely pick up just when your trainer's mailing, just maybe seeing the Spirit Link or the Forest of Giant Plants a little bit early. Definitely really helpful for building up that turn 1 Sceptile to start Jagged Sabering from the get-go. We then have 2 Professor's Letter. Again, another card that you don't mind seeing turn 1, because you can attach one and you can discard one with either a Sycamore or an Ultra Ball, something like that, to be able to have access to Mega Turbo. Again, you also want to be getting value out of your Jagged Sabers, and therefore Professor's Letter is one of the best ways to do that. I think Professor's Letter just works so well with the deck, because you pick up the 2 energy out of the deck and then attach them. Your attack basically comes search for 2 grass energy in your deck and attach them to the bench, which is just so much stronger. Again, really good for turn 1 for setting up as well. Just a really, really useful card in the deck. We then have 1 Battle Compressor. Battle Compressor is the other way we can get energy into the discard early on. If we have to use something like a Birch, we can still get energy into the discard early on if we don't have access to our Ultra Balls or anything like that. We can just drop 1 in. All you need is 1, unless you have ways of being able to Mega Turbo multiple times in a turn. All you need to get rid of is 1. And then it also works, again, really well with a VS Seeker supporter combo. Being able to get rid of a couple of supporters, and then being able to VS Seeker for the supporter of your choice is super useful. And it means you've sort of got an extra out to a supporter turn 1, if you can find a VS Seeker as well. And with things like Trainer's Mail and Shamans, you're probably going to be finding either a supporter or some combination of at least one of these cards to be able to get you into a supporter for the turn. And then finally we have 2 Switch. Unfortunately, Mega Sceptile, despite being a lot like Mega Manectric, Mega Sceptile has a 2 retreat, whereas Mega Manectric only has a 3 retreat. I think that's one of the deck's biggest downsides. It's really weak to Lysander. So that's why I've gone up to 2 Switch. It just means that your opponent can't really Lysander stall you at all. And even if they do, you've probably attached to something on the bench with Jagged Saber anyway. and therefore there's not really much that they perhaps want to Lysander, meaning that you're still going to be able to deal some pretty heavy damage just because you've been able to attach to the bench already. I think the deck is really consistent and is a lot of fun. You can see how consistent it is. There's very little, there's a lot of high counts of things. This side is only the really lower counts of things, and you're not going to want any more than 2 Professor's Letter, 1 Battle Compressor, things like that. So I feel this sort of side makes the deck really consistent, and then these are just really helpful cards to be able to ensure you can get as early Jagged Sabers as possible. But yeah, other than that, there is nothing much else for me to say. Thank you very much for watching. Sceptile is definitely a really cool concept, and I think you should definitely check it out. I think it's definitely the best Mega coming out. I think, in my opinion, is the best Mega coming out of the new set, and I believe is probably going to be the one that sees the most play, at least from the get-go. So yeah, definitely check out Mega Sceptile. It's a very cool card, and can really pull off some really good combos based on just his Jagged Saber attack, building up Lugia's, or his Unruly Claw attack, being able to pick and choose where you take your prizes with Lysander, and then start inflicting status conditions and doing huge amounts of damage with Unseen Claw, which is really cool. I think it's definitely one of the better concepts to come out of Ancient Origins, and I really recommend you check this deck out because it's a lot of fun to play too. But other than that, thank you very much for watching. I've been Jack from Omnipoke, and I'll see you in another deck analysis video.